Donald Trump has named rageaholic and former Fox News host Dan Bongino as deputy director of the FBI, an organization Bongino calls irredeemably corrupt, so he'll fit right in. Bongino, like the new head of the FBI, Kash Patel, traffics in conspiracy theories, insisting Barack Obama used the FBI to spy on Donald Trump in 2016. He also says Russiagate is a hoax, that the 2020 election was stolen by Joe Biden, the COVID vaccine isn't safe, and that the FBI played some role in the sparking of the January 6th insurrection. We're in good hands. Bongino has a long history of turning a blind eye to police brutality, trivializing the murder of George Floyd, and spreading the baseless lie that Antifa is an organization and not an ideology. It's an ideology. Antifa doesn't exist. It's not a real world thing. It's in people's head. Christopher Wray, the previous FBI head, tried to explain under oath during congressional testimony repeatedly that Antifa doesn't exist as an organization, despite people like Bongino and our current head of the FBI, Kash Patel, insisting that Antifa be labeled a terrorist organization. Bongino, in the past 2 years, says his entire life is only about owning the libs. Good use of your time. A former host on NRA TV, Dan Bongino, has said repeatedly that Americans have a binary choice. You either support the police or you support Black Lives Matter, insisting the George Floyd killing had nothing to do with Floyd being black. No, it had something to do with the fact that he was African American. When Colin Kaepernick took a knee during the national anthem, Bongino called it, quote, self-serving, ignorant, immature, and anti-American. Bongino has a background in law enforcement. Before becoming a rabid attack dog in conservative media, Bongino worked 4 years as a New York City police officer while Giuliani was mayor. So you know Bongino is going to bring the kind of racial sensitivities Trump is looking for over at the FBI. None. He then joined the U.S. Secret Service, where he was assigned to President Barack Obama's security detail. He kept Obama safe, and yet Donald Trump forgives him. See how magnanimous a man our president is? Also, to Bongino's credit, he says Obama was born in the United States. He doesn't support birtherism. See, the Trump administration is a wide-open spectrum of opinions. There are those who insist Obama was sent to America by Satan via Kenya, and then there are those in the Trump administration who say Satan sent Obama directly to America with no layover in Kenya. Bongino thinks it was an express flight, no stopovers. Bongino dipped his toe into electoral politics, running for Congress and the Senate and losing. Something to do, I think, with his being an a-hole. Voters tend to see that. More importantly, he blames January 6th on Black Lives Matter and the FBI, but mostly Black Lives Matter. He complained that the news media celebrated all the violence in 2020 from the Black Lives Matter marches. And he says the January 6ers wanted their shot to be violent. That's what he literally said. This guy, who's going to try to be our deputy FBI director, says the January 6ers saw how the Black Lives Matter protesters were celebrated for their violence, and they said, well, why can't we be celebrated? So wise, so smart. Well, first of all, the Black Lives Matter protesters were not violent, you D-bag. Every credible study shows the protests only became violent after the police showed up and began swinging bats. Now, you may not like that, but that's a fact. In New York City, the cops were literally driving their patrol cars into the protesters. It's why the police had to pay out settlements in the tens of millions of dollars to BLM protesters. That's a fact. There is no analog to Kyle Rittenhouse in the Black Lives Matter movement. Kyle Rittenhouse, who killed 2 Black Lives Matter protesters, injuring 1 in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Well, anyway, Bongino, anti-vax, anti-max, spreads lies about the COVID vaccine, even though he himself ended up getting the shot. He threatened to leave his radio show because of the vax mandates. Meanwhile, he didn't leave and he got the vaccine. So, again, it's the triumph of brawn over brain in the Trump administration. A lot of alpha males. This is how Trump governs. Kash Patel is going to be eaten alive by Dan Bongino. That's what Trump wants. He wants everyone feeding on each other in his administration so they don't feed on him. They're going to get very little done. Stupid people with muscles. This is what we're up against. Investigative journalist Michael Wolff has the ability to penetrate the semi-permeable membrane that is Trump world. Wolff has written several books on Donald Trump, all of them scandalous, but Trump just can't seem to sue him because he doesn't get anything wrong. Wolff doesn't get anything wrong. And for some reason, after Wolff's books come out, Trump allows him back into the circle. Wolff has a new book coming out tomorrow. It's called All or Nothing. And once again, it's filled with juicy tidbits. You know who doesn't like juicy tidbits? White House Communications Director Stephen Chung, because tidbit sounds too much like Fitbit. Well, Stephen Chung said this today about Michael Wolff's new book. Michael Wolff is a lying sack of S-word and has been proven to be a fraud. He routinely fabricates stories originating from his sick and warped imagination, only possible because he has a severe and debilitating case of Trump derangement syndrome that has rotted his peanut-sized brain, unquote. Stephen Chung hates anything peanut-sized. He prefers the family pack because he's all about family, like that family of naked mole rats living in the folds of his skin. According to the new book by Michael Wolff, Trump was incredibly abusive towards his lawyers, especially Todd Blanche and Blanche's partner, Emil Bove, who were the lead attorneys in the Manhattan hush money trial, where Trump was found guilty, thereby becoming the first president to be a convicted felon. According to Michael Wolff's book, after the verdict, Trump screamed at Blanche, quote, "I paid you to handle this, but you're blowing it. Why are you so weak? I don't know why I'm paying you. Why are you so weak?" So Trump had no choice but to reward the weak Todd Blanche, to reward him for his failure by nominating Todd Blanche to become our next Deputy Attorney General. What are Todd Blanche's qualifications? Low self-esteem and the need to be abused by a strong, powerful father figure. Emil Bove, who worked with Blanche, according to this book, was also on the receiving end of Trump's unfiltered vitriol. He shouted at Emil Bove after losing, quote, "How could you lose that? You were terrible. Now I get stuck with you." And it goes on and on and on. Now I get stuck with you? I'm stuck with Emil Bove because he allows me to demean him, which means I can't get rid of him. Trump made Emil Bove the acting Deputy Attorney General, while the Senate still needs to confirm Todd Blanche for that post. It was this homunculus, Emil Bove, who ended the prosecution of New York Mayor Eric Adams in exchange for Adams cooperating with ICE. Clearly illegal. Emil Bove, is nothing but a bully. Before going into private practice, Emil Bove worked at the Justice Department. Not bright. As acting deputy attorney, he's threatening to fire anyone in the Justice Department who took part in prosecuting nearly 1,500 January 6ers. Like I said, not bright. Emil Bove forgot that he was one of those prosecutors. People who aren't smart, like Emil Bove, cover up their ineptitude by bullying people. Politico interviewed at least 10 of Emil Bove's associates at the Justice Department in an expose that was published over the weekend. Co-workers describe Emil Bove as so abusive, an internal investigation into Bove's workplace behavior concluded that he should be demoted. According to Politico, Mr. Tough Guy, Emil Bove, begged to keep his job, but he was about to be demoted. What kept him from being demoted, according to Politico, was his being reprimanded by a judge for mishandling a prosecution. And the Justice Department feared that demoting Bove would serve as a signal that the Justice Department agreed with the judge. This is how people fail upwards. He apparently bullied some defendants and violated some ethics codes, according to Politico. The judge reprimanded him and wanted to punish him. The Justice Department decided, well, we can't punish him because it will look like the judge is right. According to the book by Michael Wolff that comes out tomorrow, Trump repeatedly badmouths his benefactor, Elon Musk. Trump once asked, what the F is wrong with this guy? Oh, I can answer that. Everything. Everything's wrong with Elon Musk. Elon Musk has all the markings of a sociopath. The way he uses his child as a prop. He has stopped talking to his transgender daughter. She can't stop bad-mouthing Elon Musk on social media. And he appears to be emotionally abusive towards the women who give him children. Claire Elise Boucher, a.k.a. Grimes, gave Musk 3 children. There's been custody battles. And this tweet she ended up deleting last week. Please respond to our child's medical crisis. I am sorry to do this publicly, but it is no longer acceptable to ignore this situation. This requires immediate attention. If you don't want to talk to me, can you please designate or hire someone who can so that we can move forward on solving this? This is urgent, Elon. That's from Claire Elise Boucher, a.k.a. Grimes. She ended up taking down the tweet. This is the mother of the kid who was picking his nose in the Oval Office. But he continues to procreate. From the New York Post, Ashley St. Clair, conservative influencer, sues Elon Musk for sole custody of their newborn son. There's a new child, and he loves this. He loves this. He's got 12 kids, I think. According to an article in Forbes back in 2022, at least 8, possibly all of Elon Musk's children have been had through in vitro fertilization. Musk insists that's the healthiest way to have a baby. Again, Forbes in 2022 said all 8 were in vitro. Seems a bit odd to me, doesn't it? Not to disparage anybody who relies on in vitro fertilization, but Elon Musk's behavior suggests a man in need of in vitro fertilization. If you can read between the lines, this is typical behavior of a man who can only conceive through in vitro fertilization. This is according to Forbes. This is by Alexander Dravankov, PhD. Elon Musk's babies were conceived via IVF and surrogacy. Is this the future of reproduction? It is if you have intimacy issues. I'm not saying this. It's what I hear me saying, but I'm not saying it. I'm just raising the possibility. People are saying that Elon Musk might have problems with intimacy. I hope it's not true, but that's what I hear myself saying. The New York Times over the weekend profiled Musk's fraught relationship with his colorful father, Errol Musk. And by colorful, I mean white. Errol Musk, Elon's dad, accuses Elon of being a bad father. Apparently, Elon learned from the master. Errol Musk says nannies are raising Elon's children. Like that's a bad thing? Better they should be raised by Elon, Errol? I don't think so. Let the nannies do all the interaction with the children. Errol Musk, who supports Trump, divorced Musk's mother when Elon was only 8. May Musk, Elon's mother, at the time accused Errol of abusing her. All of this under the miasma of apartheid in South Africa. The poison, outside the home as well as inside. This is who Elon Musk is. The Times quotes Elon as describing his father as, quote, gone crazy. Musk has been quoted in the past describing his childhood as unhappy. Hard to believe that such an abusive individual like Elon Musk had an abusive father. Odd. That rarely happens. You know, if I were Donald Trump, I'd watch myself. Judging by Elon Musk's dependency on in vitro fertilization, the guy loves surrogates. And Trump is starting to look like Musk's surrogate father. It doesn't take a Freudian psychiatrist to see where this is heading. Just ask Laius, the king of Thebes, and father to Oedipus. This is not going to end well for Trump or Musk. Speaking about his father, Elon once said, quote, it was like misery. He's good at making life miserable. That's for sure. He learned from the best, apparently. The New York Times reporting Musk told Rolling Stone magazine, quote, about his father, he was such a terrible human being. My dad will have a careful, thought-out plan of evil. He will plan evil, unquote. Did he ever justify one of his evil plans by calling it government efficiency? According to the New York Times, Elon tearfully told a reporter from Rolling Stone magazine, quote, almost every crime you can possibly think of, my father has done. Almost every evil thing you could possibly think of, he has done, unquote. Wow. Almost every evil thing you could think of, my father has done. Shocking Elon would make such sweeping accusations against his father that couldn't possibly be true. It's just shocking because Elon's Twitter feed is always the picture of decorum. The Times writes Elon Musk in 2018, I shouldn't be laughing at this, but these are the people who are flushing our country. These are the people who are flushing our country. The Times writes Elon Musk in 2018 fathered the first of two children with a stepdaughter 42 years his junior. Let me repeat this. The New York Times writes that Elon Musk's father, Errol, in 2018, fathered the first of two children with a stepdaughter 42 years his junior. There is nothing right in that sentence. Fathering a stepdaughter 42 years his junior. That's the type of family values Republicans are all about. These people are so depraved, I'm guessing during sex, Errol kept whispering, who's your stepdaddy? Who's your stepdaddy? This is who is flushing our country. And it's not normal behavior. But Errol Morris, the dad, insists fathering two children with his stepdaughter is not the reason Elon stopped talking to him. He says it has nothing to do with impregnating a stepdaughter twice. Errol Musk insists it's because Elon was a Clinton Democrat and I was a Republican. That's why he stopped talking to me. This is how people use politics to mask their depravity. They hide behind politics. Yeah, I'm really going to stop talking to my father because I'm voting for Hillary and he's not. It has nothing to do with my father being an abusive degenerate who fathered two kids with his stepdaughter and abused my mother. No, it's because he didn't vote for Hillary when I was a Hillary supporter. This is what the entire Republican Party has become. Victims of trauma, unresolved trauma, victims of abuse from their parents. These are all abused children who grew up, and the only way people like Elon Musk or Donald Trump can feel any affinity towards their abusive fathers is by abusing others. When a victim of child abuse becomes an abusive adult, it's their way of making peace with the past. It's a way of communing with the father who never really loved them. By being abusive yourself towards others, you think, how bad could my father have possibly been if I'm now doing the same thing? I guess he loved me after all. To feel loved, these men have to abuse others. And we gave them the keys to our kingdom. What is wrong with us? What is wrong with this country that we would give the sickest people the steering wheel? Well, the cycle of abuse continues. Elon Musk, over the weekend, ordered every single worker in our federal government to explain yourself or you're fired. It was an actual email that went out to the 2.5 million federal employees. Abuse. This is abuse. This is daddy coming home drunk and taking the belt off. Musk sent out a mass email demanding every single federal employee make a list of their accomplishments for the week. Daddy's going over your report card. Musk later defended the email, calling it, quote, a very basic pulse check. Elon, you don't know what a pulse is because you didn't know that people have hearts. And while Elon's ruining the weekend for millions of people who work for our government, he takes to Twitter, rejoicing in reports he's hearing that his email has, quote unquote, terrorized our nation's federal employees. He's rejoicing in the fact that his email over the weekend has, quote unquote, terrorized our civil service. This is sociopathic behavior. Elon Musk is the boss who waits until Christmas Eve to fire somebody. People do that when their plumbing doesn't work and they require in vitro fertilization and 12 kids to make it look like you're fecund. This is what you do when when a man's plumbing doesn't work. I had a boss whose plumbing doesn't work, and he occasionally threatened to fire everyone on Christmas Eve. And I was told by his lieutenant, oh, he likes firing people. Like, not critically. That wasn't a criticism of my boss. It's just, he feels it's good to fire people because his plumbing doesn't work. Musk accused federal workers of massive fraud over the weekend. Musk said dead people are on the federal payroll, but he offered no proof. He had said the same thing last week about Social Security, that dead people were collecting Social Security, even though Social Security's Inspector General and the head of Social Security, who was appointed just now by Donald Trump, they reported, no, not true. No dead people are getting their checks. But that doesn't stop the owner of Twitter to disseminate more lies. He's like Trump, and all he does now is lie. The Office of Personnel Management had no choice but to follow up Musk's mass email with another mass email demanding employees actually list their accomplishments for the week. Everett B. Kelly, the president of the American Federation of Government Employees, called Musk's email unhinged, you think, and unlawful. Well, of course it's unlawful. We don't even know if he's working for the Department of Government Efficiency. Trump says he's not an employee of the Department of Government Efficiency. The New York Times reporting the FBI, State Department, and intelligence agencies were told, the employees of the intelligence agencies were told, ignore Elon Musk. Insubordination. New York Times reporting Tulsi Gabbard, director of national intelligence, ordered every intelligence agency to ignore Musk's email, fearing that classified material would be leaked through that email. Dear Elon, this is how it would go. I had a very productive week here at the CIA. I turned a Russian spy into a double agent. His name is Donald Trump. I think Tulsi Gabbard should be fired. Insubordination. FBI chief Kash Patel told his agents, quote, for now, please pause any responses to Elon's email. Insubordination. Fire Kash Patel. Pentagon employees were also told to ignore Musk's email. Insubordination. You do not disobey an order from the richest man in the world. Meanwhile, Trump sacked our black chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Trump accused General Charles Q. Brown Jr. of being too woke. Yeah, more like too not white. Pete Hegseth, our alcoholic white defense secretary, accused General Brown of being the beneficiary of DEI. Hegseth said of General Brown, we'll never know if General Brown got where he is because he's qualified or because of his race, as opposed to Pete Hegseth, who we know got to where he is because of his race. Do you for 1 second think Pete Hegseth would be defense chief if he were anything but a white male? Could you imagine a person of color with Pete Hegseth's history of assaulting women? His own mother put that into writing, calling him abusive. His history of alcohol abuse, rape allegations, non-disclosure agreements about rape allegations, and nearly bankrupting 2 nonprofits. Could you imagine a person of color with that track record being asked to serve as Secretary of Defense? Any one of those strikes would have automatically disqualified a person of color. But Hegseth sailed through because of his race. It certainly wasn't the content of your character, Pete Hegseth. I love it when racists like Pete Hegseth appropriate Dr. King and pervert his dream of wanting to see people, judge people by the basis of the content of their character. Like anybody gave you a promotion based on the content of your character, Pete Hegseth, there isn't an electronic microscope strong enough to detect your character, Pete Hegseth, you white nationalist prick. General Brown, who was then Chief of Staff of the U.S. Air Force, this was back in 2020, before he became Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. General Brown was Chief of Staff of the U.S. Air Force, and he recorded a video in 2020 after the killing of George Floyd. In that video, General Brown recalled the difficulties he faced as a black man rising in the military. It was a way of telling people of color, telling women, members of the LGBTQ community, I see you, I am you. You see, that's how you win and prevent wars. Diversity is our strength. Well, Trump has declared war on diversity. He replaced General Brown with General Kane. Let me just check. White man. White man. General Kane also runs several businesses. Trump praised General Kane's entrepreneurial spirit. I mean, who doesn't want our military run by an entrepreneur? In firing General Brown, Trump said the Pentagon needs warriors. Yes. And entrepreneurs like Donald Trump, who danced to the Village Peoples in the Navy. What a warrior Donald Trump is, right? Here he is storming Lafayette Park in 2020 for a photo op at a church. So brave to lead his troops into battle. Donald Trump, the Battle of Lafayette Park. And, you know, if I had video of this, you could see the limp Trump still has from Vietnam, those bone spurs he got during the Vietnam War. Where's his Purple Heart? During the Vietnam War, Donald Trump got bone spurs. He should get a Purple Heart. He was injured during the Vietnam War. Bone spurs. No Purple Heart. Republicans love reducing the job of our military down to breaking things and killing people. This is what, what's his name? Tucker Carlson always said. This is what they say on Fox. The job of the military is to break things and kill people. They say this because they have no idea what actual soldiers do. Wars are not won killing people and breaking things. If they were, Russia would be victorious in Ukraine right now, and America would have won in Vietnam, Afghanistan, and Iraq. You don't win wars breaking things and killing people. You know who knows that? General David Petraeus, who is generally credited with winning the surge in Iraq back in 2007. 30,000 additional troops were sent to Iraq with the surge after 4 years of American failure over there. The surge was also a failure because the entire premise of the war was corrupt. But Petraeus was able to calm things down to some degree in 2007 with the surge. Did he break things and kill people? No, he armed our soldiers with suitcases of American dollars and paid Iraqis not to kill each other. That was the surge. That was the surge. Walking up to the Baathists, the Sunnis, the Shiites, and saying, how much will it cost for you to put down your guns? And they put down their guns. As I always say, Google it. But Republicans, these unresolved trauma we're talking about, these mental defects, these Republicans love to say we lost in Iraq and Afghanistan because our military lost sight of their mission, which is to break things and kill people. We broke things. We killed people and committed war crimes. Again, this is said by people who never served in the military or by people who did serve in the military and are now suffering from untreated PTSD. We have a problem in America with untreated PTSD from the 20-some-odd year global war on terror. We did it on the cheap. In the history of civilization, no other country fought a 20-year war by lowering taxes. We did it on the cheap. And one of the legacies of fighting this 20-year global war on terror, fighting it on the cheap, is a lot of our soldiers did more than 2 tours of duty. Some did as many as 20 tours of duty. In Vietnam, if you were unlucky, you did 2 tours of duty. And we know, unfortunately, what 2 tours of duty did to our veterans. Now we have soldiers who some did 20 tours of duty. A lot of men and women were destroyed because we waged war with no draft, which meant a lot of these soldiers, men and women, spent an inordinate amount of time in war zones. And that's not healthy. Not healthy for your body, not healthy for your mind. It causes PTSD. And left untreated, when PTSD or shell shock is left untreated, these people often learn the wrong lessons from war and end up becoming our Secretary of Defense, Vice President, or Governor of Florida. What's his name? The lawyers, DeSantis and Vance, wore the uniform, but they didn't see any action. Hegseth did. But being over there, it does something to your mind. And a lot of untreated PTSD results in people having twisted politics, much like Hitler's white nationalists. These white nationalists rely on the stabbed in the back theory. What is the stabbed in the back theory? It dates back to the rise of Hitler and how he was able to get shell-shocked World War I veterans to embrace his victimization of certain groups. Hitler convinced Germans that they would have won World War I if they weren't stabbed in the back by the liberals, the Jews, the intelligentsia, and of course, the media. They're the ones, said Hitler, who lost World War I for Germany, not you, the soldiers. It was a noble fight. We were right for fighting it, but we were stabbed in the back. And too many shell-shocked Germans believed Hitler. Why? Because the reality, the truth, is too devastating to accept. It's too devastating to accept that you were sent into a war. You were sent in to watch your buddies decapitated. You were sent in for nothing. For nothing. Over a lie. So you have to believe something else. That it was a noble cause and we would have won, but we were stabbed in the back by the media, the intelligentsia, the Jews, the nobility. After Vietnam, after we sent more than 500,000 soldiers, after we dropped more bombs on Indochina than all the other bombs we had ever dropped in every other war combined, Google that. We dropped more bombs on Indochina than every other bomb we dropped during Korea, World War II, World War I combined. And after Saigon fell, and a lot of people realized this country was lied to and this was all for nothing, the military-industrial complex, their think tanks, their tools got to work and dug up the old stabbed in the back theory from Nazi Germany. No. It was a noble cause. It was a noble, and we would have won, but we weren't trying. That's what the think tanks were saying. Had we tried, we would have won. Sending 500,000 soldiers, dropping more bombs than all the other bombs in every other war combined, but we didn't try hard enough. Yeah, the phrase was we were forced to fight Vietnam with one arm tied behind our back. They said we were stabbed in the back by the protest movement, by Jane Fonda. Wasn't she great? She was great the other night. We were stabbed in the back by liberals, Tom Hayden, Jane Fonda, the media, the college-educated baby boomers. Why? Why did the stabbed in the back theory once again take hold with weak-minded people? because it was too painful to accept that America gave everything we got trying to win Vietnam, short of nuclear annihilation. And we lost. We lost a war based on lies. Based on lies. That's too painful. So we embrace the stabbed in the back theory and Pentagon mismanagement. We embrace the ridiculous Powell doctrine. Colin Powell, who fought in Vietnam, came back with a way to justify future wars with the Powell doctrine. And that is never engage American soldiers in war again without a clear purpose, as though there's a war that can have a clear purpose, as though wars are neat and tidy and don't change when you get into them and they start getting bloodier. The myth of the Powell doctrine, that when you commit our nation's treasure to war, we have to have a clear and defined purpose, like we didn't have one in Vietnam, right? We had a clear and defined purpose to push the North Vietnamese back behind the demilitarized zone. Didn't work. We had a clear purpose, Colin Powell, who lied before the UN about weapons of mass destruction and never apologized. The same thing is going on right now with Colin Powell's Iraq invasion. But this time the people like Pete Hegseth are blaming the lawyers for America losing in Iraq and Afghanistan. This is the new excuse. Rolling Stone has a story about Pete Hegseth, our defense secretary's enmity towards Pentagon lawyers, the JAG officers. In his books, Pete Hegseth often writes that soldiers on the ground in Iraq and Afghanistan couldn't fight the way they wanted to because they had to constantly check with the lawyers to make sure they weren't violating the Geneva Conventions. So he's really not talking about getting rid of lawyers. He's pretty much talking about ripping up the Geneva Conventions and committing war crimes. But he's saying it's the lawyers we lost in Afghanistan and Iraq because the lawyers at the Pentagon made us fight with one arm tied behind our back. We were torturing, and very few people, at least the higher ups, very few suffered for Abu Ghraib. We waterboard in Gitmo, Haspel. We made the CIA chief, I think she was in Thailand, Haspel, destroyed evidence of waterboarding, so they made her the CIA chief. The lawyers really, that's why we lost the war. No, we lost the war because waterboarding and torture doesn't give you actionable intelligence. Just makes people hate us more. We were force-feeding enemy combatants in Gitmo. They would go on hunger strikes. So in Gitmo, they would force-feed the enemy combatants. Now, force-feeding is torture. It is nothing other than torture. I don't want to go into details, but your intestines don't absorb nutrients. So, and the CIA knew that, and the doctors told the CIA torturers that shoving feeding tubes up their woohoos isn't going to keep them alive. CIA didn't care. This was all about torture. It's why there are stories that Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, when he was stationed down in Gitmo, there are accusations that he was laughing hysterically while some of these enemy combatants were being force-fed. They weren't being force-fed. They were having tubes shoved up them and tortured. It was all about humiliation and pain. Well, on Friday, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth asked the top judge advocate generals, JAGs, working for the Army, Navy, and Air Force. He got rid of them. He said these JAG officers lacked a warrior ethos. They lack a warrior ethos, keeping soldiers, he said, from being more aggressive on the battlefield. Again, this idiot says it's the job of the guy in charge of the Pentagon, who we trust our children's lives with, thinks it's the jobs of soldiers to break things and kill people. That's how you lose wars. That's how you lose the hearts and minds. Look how well it's going in Gaza. Take a look at Gaza, you ignoramus. Has Hamas given up? Have you read the polling of the people who live in Gaza? Fight on, they say. Now you've concentrated their minds. Fight on. Only somebody who is stupid and sick in the head thinks wars are won by breaking things and killing people. Look at Gaza. Look at Vietnam. Look at Iraq. But these people are sadists. They're abusive men who were abused as children, and the only way they can commune with their parents is by being equally abusive, and then to win their love, more abusive. And we gave them the keys to our kingdom. We gave them the keys to our kingdom. So the lie now, we need a warrior culture. I believe that was what George W. Bush and Dick Cheney said when they illegally took us to Iraq and Afghanistan. Bring it on. We want them dead or alive. How did we get Osama bin Laden? Was it the warrior culture, Pete Hegseth, that finally killed Osama bin Laden? No, it was a doctor giving out polio shots in Abbottabad, Pakistan. He wasn't breaking things and killing people. We got Osama bin Laden by giving out polio shots. But Hegseth is tough. That's what Trump wants. Tough. He's tough. I know that because Hegseth used to be on Fox News, so he's tough. Like Dan Bongino is tough. Don Bongino is tough. He used to be on Fox News, so name him deputy director of the FBI. But you know who's not tough? Caleb Vitello. Caleb Vitello is, as they say, well, I won't say the P word. He was the acting head of ICE, Caleb Vitello. And he was ordered to step aside. He was just ordered to stand down as head of ICE because the number of undocumented immigrants getting rounded up is below Biden's numbers. See, that's the problem with putting someone in charge who never hosted a show on Fox. Caleb Vitello, acting head of ICE. No more. You've been demoted. Loser. Failure. You're a failure, Caleb Vitello, acting head of ICE. You're a worthless human being. Worthless. You can't even please mein Führer. You're a worthless human being, Caleb Vitello, former acting head of ice. And you're going to burn in hell, Caleb Vitello. You're going to burn in hell, Caleb Vitello, former acting head of ICE. Not tough. You weren't tough. You know who's tough? Rudy Giuliani. Here is the most depressing statement and picture of the day. Here we go. Rudy Giuliani spotted by TMZ buying Just for Men in Secaucus, New Jersey. That is an actual photo of Rudy Giuliani buying Just for Men. And he's in a scooter, so the only running Rudy's got going is hair dye down the side of his face. He's in a scooter. Trump told a meeting of governors last week, quote, "I had very good talks with Putin, not so good talks with Ukraine." Trump says Zelensky talks tough for a guy with no bargaining chips. Bargaining chips? Well, you have to have bargaining chips? Yeah, minerals. He does have bargaining chips, you moron. Trump said he's looking forward to peace talks with Putin. More like peace listens. More like taking orders from your sugar daddy, Vladimir Putin. Aides to Trump can't name one concession they're going to demand from Putin in order to end the fighting in Ukraine. But tell me again how Russiagate was a hoax. I love my listeners who hate Hillary more than they love America and say Russiagate was a hoax. The United States on Monday voted against a UN resolution condemning Russia on the third anniversary of Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine. We voted against this. The resolution, which we voted against, demanded Russia pull out of Ukraine. And America, thanks to Donald Trump, voted against the resolution. We're on the same side as North Korea. But Russiagate was a hoax. Except for the Mueller report. If you bother to read the Mueller report, or every congressional hearing, including the ones chaired by Republicans, you'd know that Russiagate, that Putin owns Trump. But this is typical bully behavior, right? Trump sucks up to Putin, but threatens to punch members of his own family, like Canada or Mexico. This is classic bully behavior. We're picking a fight with Canada. I mean, it's not a dream. It's not a dream. After declaring Mexican drug cartels terrorists, Donald Trump announced he's considering airstrikes against the drug cartels without Sheinbaum's permission. She's the president of Mexico. More performative, tough talking. You know, we're going to bomb the drug cartels when it would be cheaper to provide treatment on demand for Americans in the throes of addiction. That would be the long-term solution, but that's not breaking things and killing people. That's treating people. Look at Melania. Look at that. What's going on here? That was her meeting the governors. Look at that. Melania's got her Marlene Dietrich in Morocco look going. She's, I hate to say this, but she's dressing like a man. Look at that. And she better be careful because on Monday, the Supreme Court refused to hear a challenge to Tennessee's law banning drag shows. Melania, don't go anywhere near Tennessee. 2 years ago, Tennessee's Republican-controlled legislature passed a bill outlawing adult-themed performances in public A lower court ruled it unconstitutional, but a circuit court overturned the lower court's ruling, and now with the Supreme Court refusing the challenge, this law banning drag shows now stands. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz over the weekend said Donald Trump is a man of peace. Trump agreed and then threatened to invade Norway unless they give him a Nobel Peace Prize. Proud Boys leader and longtime police informer doing time for seditious conspiracy, Enrique Tarrio was one of the 1,500 January 6ers who had his sentence commuted by Donald Trump. On Friday, Proud Boy leader Enrique Tarrio was arrested for assaulting a protester in Washington, D.C. He was briefly detained and released. At the time of the arrest, Enrique Tarrio and Stuart Rhodes, leader of the Oath Keepers, also released by Trump while serving time for seditious conspiracy, they held a joint press conference outside the Capitol and led protesters in shouting, "Whose house? Our house." It was a busy day for Enrique Tarrio. Before getting arrested, Enrique Tarrio heckled Capitol police officers Michael Fanone and Harry Dunn at a conservative event for Never Trumpers. Harry Dunn and Michael Fanone are conservatives. They just don't like Trump. The meeting over the weekend was called Principles First and was held in Washington's JW Marriott Hotel. Enrique Tarrio, reportedly began following Capitol police officers Dunn and Fanone there, challenging them to a fight, screaming, "Not so tough now, are you?" Officer Fanone and Dunn, they kept walking. Fanone called Tarrio a traitor to his country. Police Officer Fanone, Capitol Police Officer Fanone, says that Trump's decision to pardon or commute sentences for the January 6ers was no different from Hitler creating an army of brown shirts, extrajudicial thugs, who violently enforce the wishes of their leader without having to worry about government guardrails. I mean, it's right out in the open. And when you have Capitol Police Officer Fanone saying this, what more do you need to know? On Sunday, a bomb scare honoring January 6ers was phoned into the Principles First conference to interrupt Sunday's session. During his press conference, Tarrio told reporters, "We're pretty much right-wing." He's talking about the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers. "We're pretty much right-wing. What view do we have that Republicans don't have now?" Unquote. Leave a comment. The current iteration of this Republican Party, does Enrique Tarrio, does Stuart Rhodes, the head of the Oath Keepers, they have any views that Republicans don't have? It explains why Enrique Tarrio was welcomed into the big annual meeting of conservatives, CPAC, along with several other Proud Boys. CPAC held their annual get-together outside Washington, D.C. over the weekend. Well, they first turned Enrique Tarrio away. CPAC then decided to let him in. They realized they had made a mistake and Matt Schlapp issued the following statement. The head of CPAC, Matt Schlapp, quote, "CPAC has been a constant supporter of this persecuted community, and we support wholeheartedly President Trump's pardons of the J6 victims." Good for you. Matt Schlapp loves the Proud Boys. He even loves the not-so-Proud Boys. Headline, Washington Post, CPAC urged to probe more sexual misconduct claims against its chair, Matt Schlapp. I go over this over and over again, but I'm just going to read you this part. This is Ernst Röhm crap from Nazi Germany. Men who feel insecure, not tough enough, not masculine enough, so they play dress up with other men or suck up to muscular bullies. This is from the New York Times last week after Matt Schlapp was accused of sexually assaulting another man last week. New York Times. On one occasion, the Washington Post reported Mr. Schlapp was accused of stripping to his underwear and rubbing against another person without his consent during a 2022 fundraiser trip to South Florida. In 2017, a CPAC employee accused Mr. Schlapp of trying to kiss him against his wishes, the newspaper reported. This is Ernst Röhm crap. This is who they are. People like Matt Schlapp get up every morning and they hate themselves. They hate their desires. And they want to see people hurt. They delight in the suffering of others because they hate themselves so much. What is more self-loathing than a homophobic man constantly being accused of grabbing other men's junk and kissing them? How much hatred how dark a soul do you have when you're behaving this way? Head of the Oath Keepers, Stuart Rhodes, was also welcomed inside CPAC. Did he bring his wife and oh no, his wife and children are afraid of him. They say he beat them repeatedly. Stuart Rhodes stood behind Trump at a Las Vegas rally on January 25th. This is the guy, the Oath Keeper. He started the Oath Keepers, brought a cache of weapons to Washington, D.C. for January 6th, was doing close to 20 years for seditious conspiracy, and Trump commuted his sentence. And this is Rhodes in Las Vegas, positioned alongside Ryan and Cliven Bundy at a Trump speech in Las Vegas, January 25th. Remember the Bundys? They didn't want to pay the government's grazing fees, so they convinced a bunch of pinheads with guns to take arms against our country because it's all about freedom. No, it's all about not wanting to pay grazing fees. Meeting up at so what you do is, I don't want to pay my grazing fees. Hey, where can I find some sociopaths with guns who are looking for a fight? And I can convince them it's about something other than grazing fees. Meeting up at CPAC, Stuart Rhodes and Enrique Tarrio said they both plan to sue our Justice Department independently. What, for prosecuting and convicting you? And you were pardoned? The only reason you're out is because you've been deputized as one of Trump's brown shirts? What are you going to sue the Justice Department over? You were found guilty. Enrique Tarrio, who lives in Florida, says he might run for Matt Gaetz's old congressional seat. Matt Gaetz was going to be Attorney General until a congressional ethics report unearthed credible evidence he had trafficked young girls, possibly minors, for drug-fueled orgies. Trump knew all about these allegations, but nominated him to be Attorney General because of this. Not in spite, because of this. And if you have any doubt this is all Ernst Röhm brown shirt shit, Steve Bannon flashed the Nazi salute at CPAC when he spoke. Jordan Bardella, the leader of France's far-right party, immediately canceled his CPAC speech because of Steve Bannon flashing the Nazi salute. In Europe, in France, they take Nazis seriously. I guess something happened. So does Australia. The BBC reporting Australia outlawed the Nazi salute. The new law includes prison sentences for anybody who flashes a Nazi salute. I know my American friends are saying, but what about freedom of speech? Well, nobody's saying anything. They're making a salute. It's quiet. Let me ask you a question about freedom of speech and Nazi salutes. Can I leave the door open when I go to the bathroom? Can I go to the bathroom in front of people? Is that should that be against the law? Is it in a workplace or in public? Can I just drop my pants and do my business? Don't I have free? See, the Nazi salute is like taking a shit in public. It's a zoning issue. It's a sense of aesthetics. It's ugly. The community doesn't like it. It's not about freedom of speech. The conservative Christian party won big in Sunday's German elections. The center-right party, led by Friedrich Merz, I know I'm getting the name wrong, Friedrich Merz? Fred Merz from William Frawley, I already did that. Fred Merz got 29% of the vote. That's the center-right party. Alternative for Germany. This is the party that Elon Musk and J.D. Vance support. Alternative for Germany, a party of Nazi apologists, Holocaust deniers, anti-immigrant racists who can trace their ideological roots to Hitler's appeal to Aryan nationalism. They won 19.5% of the vote. So between those two parties, the center-right party, led by Fred Merz, and the Alternative for Germany party, that's almost half the German electorate turning to the right. Thanks to the firewall, it's called a firewall, that's an agreement not to form coalitions with Nazis. Fred Merz will have to form, Friedrich Merz, he'll have to form a coalition government without Alternative for Germany, which got close to 20% of the vote. He may be forced into a coalition with outgoing Chancellor Olaf Scholz's center-left Social Democrats, who got 16% of the vote. The Green Party came in fourth with 13.5%. Despite Fred Merz sharing many of the policies with the Alternative for Germany party, he is going to have to form a coalition government with leaders who represent the polar opposite, I think. And it may take months before he forms a government. But Trump, because he's stupid, called Germany's election a victory for me, for Trump. Fred Merz, however, says it's time for Europe to distance itself from Donald Trump. He said, I am communicating closely with a lot of prime ministers and heads of EU states. And for me, it is an absolute priority to strengthen Europe as quickly as possible so that we achieve independence from the U.S. step by step. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen of Oklahoma told Meet the Press Sunday it might be time to leave NATO. Leave NATO. You mean the coalition of nations that has maintained European peace since World War II, except for Serbia and Kosovo, briefly? That NATO? The stunningly successful NATO? This America First White nationalism isn't playing well with constituents. Mullen from Oklahoma brushed off questions about his Oklahoma voters feeling the pain from the Department of Government Efficiency. There are reports of Republicans getting pushback at town halls because of Trump. Right-wing members of Congress are being booed at their town halls. And you know what that means? No more town halls. The New York Times reporting that Airbnb co-founder Joe Gebbia joined Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency. This is from the San Francisco Standard. Hosts are fleeing Airbnb in protest over co-founder's Department of Government Efficiency work. Billionaire Joe Gebbia, a former Democratic donor, has reportedly switched allegiances to work with Elon Musk and Donald Trump. He's now living in Austin, Texas, and he's all in on destroying the federal government. And a lot of people are no longer using Airbnb because of this. So, this is from the San Francisco Standard. Airbnb is worried about this boycott, and they reminded consumers that their founder has not been involved in day-to-day operations of Airbnb since 2022. He's still on the board of directors. And Airbnb made the following statement. Airbnb has always been about more than the viewpoints of any one person. Our community is made up of millions of hosts and hundreds of millions of guests from all walks of life. How about you condemn the Department of Government Efficiency? How about you kick this guy off your board? If you're going to pretend, if a corporation is going to pretend to have values, don't tell me there's room for hundreds of millions of different opinions. That's what J.D. Vance said in Munich, defending the Alternative for Germany party for not silencing hate speech. Room for different opinions means you either agree with the opinions that are horrific or you're just trying to get one past me. We've discovered what DEI really was, how much these corporations really embraced equality and diversity. It's about money. Stop pretending Starbucks is about anything other than pushing caffeine. There's a blowback. People are going to boycott. I showed you that poll last week from The Guardian. 40% of Americans say they won't spend money on products owned by people who don't share their views. This is why Kennedy Center ticket sales have plunged 50%. This after the Gay Men's Choir was pulled from the calendar at the Kennedy Center as Donald Trump purged the Kennedy Center's leadership. Donald Trump named himself temporary chair of the Kennedy Center and fired the entire board. He accused the Kennedy Center of presenting drag shows specifically targeting our youth. Personally, I think the Kennedy Center should be shut down. Trump, because up until sometimes Trump does something halfway good. This is the problem with Trump. He perverts the truth. The Kennedy Center was run by war profiteer David Rubenstein from the Carlyle Group. He founded the Carlyle Group. He's one of the world's biggest war profiteers, David Rubenstein, who insinuates himself into Washington culture. He has a show on the PBS that nobody watches, but he donates tens of millions of dollars to the PBS, and this prick gets his own show. He was scheduled to step down as head of the Kennedy Center in late 2026. Trump fired him. Occasionally, Trump does something halfway decent. David Rubenstein, who's your enemy, the Carlyle Group is your enemy. They are the bribe after you commit the deed. Like after Tony Blair goes along with George W. Bush, he gets money from the Carlyle Group, but you got to do the dirty deed first. That's how the Carlyle Group runs. David Rubenstein was appointed to the Kennedy Center by George W. Bush. You know, their publicists have called me and said, would you like to have him on the show? Because he writes books. And I like the publicist, so I won't do that to them. David Rubenstein, the founder of the Carlyle Group, he's your enemy. The Carlyle Group is your enemy. He was appointed by George W. Bush, and President Joe Biden spent every Thanksgiving while he was president in David Rubenstein's home. So there's a reason. Anyway, not going to go there. Well, there have been some much needed changes at the Kennedy Center now that Donald Trump is in charge, and I got my hands on some upcoming events at the new MAGA-infused Kennedy Center. This is the Alvin Ailey dance troupe. They made a few adjustments to accommodate Trump's demands for less diversity. And next week at the Kennedy Center, Scott Baio and Patricia Heaton from Everybody Loves Raymond will be starring in an all-white version of Fences by August Wilson. I am going to go to Washington, D.C. to catch this in March. Roseanne and Kid Rock starring in The Color Purple, the musical based on a 1982 novel by Alice Walker. Scott Baio is back in April with actor James Woods doing a Raisin in the Sun. June, Kid Rock and Roseanne return in Dreamgirls. This is at the MAGA-infused Kennedy Center. Scott Baio and Everybody Loves Raymond's Patricia Heaton in July will be starring in For Colored Girls Who Have Considered Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough. What is that? Oh, that's a picture from my wedding night. What is that doing in there? And coming to the Kennedy Center, Joe Biden in the Red Leather Tour. That I'm going to catch. Joe Biden in the Red Leather Tour. I don't know what it is, but I want to see it. And Don Jr. kicks off his singing career with a musical tribute to Dean Martin entitled That's a Moron. That's a moron. I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed any of this garbage, please hit the like button. Please subscribe to my newsletter. Please subscribe to this channel. My schedule is erratic. I'm trying to do more live shows in the early evening, Eastern. But if you hit the notifications thing, the button or something, it'll notify you when a show is coming up. I'm also trying to post clips from these episodes at around 6 p.m. when I don't have a show. I kind of clip together some important stuff. And if you don't mind, copy and paste the episode and share it with your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, your dead relatives, with your mother, your father, your grandmother, your grandfather, your step-parents, your stepchildren, your you know, just think of what everybody who has a podcast asks you to do and do it for me. So I don't have to ask you. And check out the garbage over at shopdavidfeldman.com. Thank you to Bob and Mila in the chat room for keeping the conversation civilized. I read all your comments. All right. The fight continues.